What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Persona 3, the Answer DLC, and just rant a little bit on the state of things. So, look, I want to come out early on and say, look, I love the Persona franchise, okay? Persona 4 Golden, incredible. Persona 5, awesome. 6, I cannot wait for. In fact, if I were to rank the next, even like multi-year, right? How many games are coming out in the next 2, 3, 4 years? Persona 6 would probably be in a top 5 situation, okay? But what they have done with Persona 3, I think is laughable to the point that you got to kind of call it. Well, okay, you don't have to do anything, but I feel the need that I think we need to kind of talk about it and call it out. Now, another thing to say early, this should not be shocking. That's another, pretty obvious thing. They're kind of known for this. And when Persona 3 Reload was announced, people already saw, what they were doing in terms of not having the female protagonist. And now, look, I haven't played Persona 3. In fact, I tried to play Persona 3 Portable. I put in about 3-4 hours, and I said, you know what? The remake is coming. This was actually before the remake was announced. I kind of sensed it. I said, okay, the remake's coming. I'll just wait and play Reload. Haven't gotten to it yet with all these RPGs, but I do intend to play it on Game Pass over the next couple months. But you kind of have the classic Atlus here, right? Where they had an opportunity to unite all fronts, right? To put the best of all of the different versions, because sometimes some of these Persona 3 versions have better things than others, right? They had the opportunity to put everything together in one sleek package deal. And even as like a preservation thing, I got the third channel, Back to the Past, and I collect all these physical games. I have Persona 4 Golden on the Vita physically, but I don't have, anything else. So I got to get to that. You don't know, I might have Persona 5. Bottom line is, I like game preservation. I try to support it the best I can, and even in that way, this is a pretty big disappointment, right? Having the answer come later. Now, again, is this new? No, we knew, seemingly from how they kind of worded the DLC and all that jazz. They were probably going to give you the answer remade, and they were going to give it to you, later, removed from the base game. Well, the thing is, right? Really, it's the price to me where, from what I know, now again, I haven't played Persona 3, but I've researched a fair amount. It's a pretty meaty thing, right? Like, it adds 20, 25, 30 hours. Like, it's pretty substantial. So I believe the price is $35 US. Now, it changes, depending on the region. Is $35 worth it for, a 30-hour expansion? Plus, it's not just that. It's 2 minor expansions as well. All right, is the price literally worth it? I guess. I think it would be. And the answer is a divided DLC from what I can tell, but it is kind of necessary for Persona 3, so, whatever. But the point is separating it from the base game, right? It's why I wanted to make this kind of video. Why? Why? Now, we've had the developers come out and say their reasoning why. Now, the question then becomes, who do you start believing, right? Who's actually telling the truth? Because they say, and I kind of believe it, right? They say, look, we have a studio, and we have people that are working on this, but they're not just working on this. In fact, they kind of let the cat out, in my opinion. They talked about working on future things. So I feel like the team that's doing 3 Reload, at least part of them, would maybe also be doing 6. Maybe they're doing the other Persona 5 spinoff that's long been rumored, right, to come out. They're busy, right? Ultimately, they're busy. The female protagonist thing was just, it would take too much resources. They don't have those resources. And then maybe even the answer DLC was kind of the same answer, right? They're busy. It took a lot of money. They wanted it out. There's rumors about the localization is what slowed them down, that the rest of the game was actually done. The rumor is 2022, the base game was done. The localization is what's taken the last 2 or so years. So I don't know what you want to believe. And again, if you want to believe the developers, look, yeah, they're the people in the trenches, right? They're the ones working on it every day. And could I believe that they don't have the resources necessary to split, evenly and to dedicate, their entire workforce to all these projects the way it should be? I believe that. I feel like that's what companies, gaming companies modern day do, right? They don't give them enough time. They don't give them enough resources, but and maybe that is true. And so my attack here, or my criticism, isn't necessarily to them. It's, again, you had an opportunity to do this right, and you chose to not put the best of Persona 3 and the definitive edition. Again, that's the thing to me. In terms of game preservation, all this, really all comes together, right? Persona 3 and Portable and FES, right? Like they're old games, they're scattered, they're not the easiest thing. I think on Game Pass, yes, they did, I think at least Portable, right? But still, let's just maybe ignore that for a second. It's not the easiest franchise before Persona 4 Golden, which, even that, I guess, on Game Pass and stuff. But it's not the easiest franchise to just, like, boot up and play. And like we talk about with all these kind of game preservation things, right? Like, how many people are busting out their PSP, or how many people for an old Xbox game that's not backwards compatible, or a PS2 or a PS1 game. Yeah, you can do it, but it's not ideal. It's eventually these machines are going to break, hence why there could be other methods, right, that you could do this stuff. So I guess my point is they had an opportunity to make a definitive edition, to make it like the most consumer friendly, but also help the preservation of their own series, right? Like it would be a modern game. It's in terms of, I believe, what they did with it, right? The improved social links and just the way that it looks, the UI and all of that. It is the best version of it. In a lot of ways, it is the best version. But then in some ways, you still have things from games that are over 10, 15 years old. There's still things in those games in Persona 3 that are not in this one. So, I mean, that's something, again, that's been around for the last little while, ever since we've known about it. But then splitting up the game, which, again, is kind of the same thing, because that is included in one of the versions, hence the opportunity that you could have just moved that over. But instead they decided, well, let's separate it and let's make some more money off of it. And that's pretty much what they're doing. Now, again, whose fault is that? Executives, whatever. I mean, I guess you could blame whoever you want. But it is disappointing, and it's something you would have hoped that they would, get right. I guess in a way, like technically, you do get it, and you do get it remade. It's just, you have to pay extra for it. It is on Game Pass, so, I mean, technically you could pay $0. Obviously, you're paying for the subscription service, but you'd be paying $0 for the base game, and then you have to pay the extra, $30, $40, whatever, for the extra stuff. So I guess you're still getting it cheaper, but then you don't really own it. You own, the DLC, but you don't necessarily own the base game. It's just messy. It's a messy situation. But again, and as people have, I mean, I thought it started kind of as a joke, but I think it's getting more and more serious, right? Like, even Persona 5, then Royal, and you think about 6, like, are we going to get a definitive version of 6 right away, or are we going to get it, a year and a half later where it's required that you buy the whole thing? And, I mean, I like, I guess, what they do generally. Like, I beat Persona 5, okay? And I beat it years after. But I beat it, and then Royal came out. No joke, I want to say 2 months, because I think Royal came out in like March or April, maybe not, but it's from my memory, March or April. I think I beat the game in like January. So by the time I beat it, and then I knew the content they had added, and it seemed very much worth it, but it's like, well, I just put in 97 hours. I don't want to put in 125 2 months after, right? So they do this all the time. That doesn't mean I have to like it. And for specifically something like this, it's a disappointment from game preservation. It's their normal thing that they do. And it's just, this was their opportunity to bring everything together. And in some ways they did, but also they literally did leave things out. And then also they charge for that extra thing that should have just been included in the base because it was in one of the versions. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.